Hey book readers, I'm taking a moment to share some thoughts about the books I read this month. I'm chatting about everything from a historical fiction fantasy book with pirates and a modern classic to a magical YA fantasy my daughter read and a sci-fi novella set in Montreal. So let's talk books. First up is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by S.A. Chakraborty. A retired lady pirate, Amina al-Sirafi, is pulled out of retirement by the opportunity for amazing riches if she tracks down and brings home the granddaughter of a wealthy old lady. But Amina hasn't been a working pirate for 10 years and now has a daughter of her own. But the chance to set up her daughter for life with more money than beyond her wildest dreams, as well as a chance to scratch that adventure itch that's been nagging at her for years, causes Amina to sign up for the job. First, she has to find her old ship that's being captained by her old first mate, and convince the crew to join her, and sail off to find clues about the granddaughter's whereabouts, and then bring her back home. There are demonic husbands in the novel, and evil sorcerers, and plenty of magic, which we see in one of the first chapters of the book, but its prevalence ramps up as the novel chugs along, becoming an increasingly important part of the book and the world it's set in. 4 stars for this one. It was a magical, swashbuckling adventure with likable characters that have a nice mix of motivations for their actions. What's also great is that Amina isn't an invincible superhero. She has flaws, never seeming fully in control of her surroundings or fate, but her wiles and way of reading people means she always has a chance of success. But the author puts big hurdles in Amina's path at every turn, so it's not a foregone conclusion that Amina will succeed. The second book I read this month was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. My 7-year-old daughter got this book for Christmas, thanks Uncle Matt and Aunt Taylor, and she was super excited that I was going to read one of her books. But we did have to have a talk about what no spoilers means, because she kept asking me where I was in the book and if this part or that part of the story had happened yet. Anyway, without spoiling anything for you, in the story, a mother is forced to leave her baby in the woods as a sacrifice for an evil witch. But a good witch named Zan finds her and decides to raise the child as her daughter, alongside a swamp monster named Glurk and a tiny dragon named Firion. Instead of letting the baby girl soak up starlight, which would have given her a touch of magic, Zan accidentally allows the girl to soak up moonlight, which is incredibly magical. As the girl, named Luna, begins to grow, her magic is too powerful for Zan to control, so Zan places a spell on Luna, delaying the girl's access to magic until she turns 13. However, the spell has a consequence. Luna can't hear, read, or even think about magic. Otherwise, she freezes in place for a while and her mind becomes a foggy mess as she tries to figure out why she can't remember the thing she was just thinking about. Meanwhile, there's another story happening in the town where Luna was originally from. A young man who was part of the group that tried to sacrifice Luna to the witch is haunted by the screams of Luna's birth mother, who has since been locked in a tower and cared for by a shady group of ladies. Luna's 13th birthday is approaching, and these two stories are about to collide. But I won't say any more because I don't want to be like my daughter and spoil anything for anybody. And I'm going to give this one 4 stars as well. The book is really well written, with the swamp monster Glurk and the tiny dragon reminding me of T.J. Klune's quirky characters from The House in the Cerulean Sea and In the Lives of Puppets. They're lovable and funny, forming a strange sort of family alongside Zan and Luna. The author, Kelly Barnhill, does an excellent job of slowly peeling back layers of the story, showing past events that shape the world. She also beautifully describes magic and memories. And there's an edge to the magic in this book. It seems threatening at times and wonderful at others. This balance creates part of the book's drama. And while there's a medium-sized cast of characters to keep track of and subtle clues that may go undetected by younger readers, this book should have wide appeal for both kids and grown-ups. Next up is The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. Now, I read this book about as far away from October 31st as possible, and it felt like a dark episode of the Magic School Bus. The story follows a group of friends who go trick-or-treating to a haunted house on Halloween, only to have their buddy Pipkin mysteriously whisked away by a dark figure. As they try to save their missing buddy, they're led back through the history of Halloween by the mystifying Mr. Moundshroud. They venture back to ancient Egypt for a funeral, Mexico for Dia de los Muertos, Europe in the Middle Ages to see witches, and more places. In each place, Pipkin is somehow part of the setting, and each of the boys discovers something about the significance of their Halloween costume. It's a wonderful, magical read with a hint of malevolence in it. And I'm giving this one 4 stars. The writing is flawless. I could read Ray Bradbury all day. The guy has an unmatched way with words. If you told me that he spent a week on each of his sentences, I would probably believe you. I really think in this book he used every single word in the English language that might have an inkling of a sinister feeling to it. Every spooky word is accounted for, and he uses them in unique ways, describing items and actions unlike any other author. It's like poetry. Another book I read this month was The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This book is about how our perspectives can change over time. Like when I walked back into my elementary school after I'd graduated from college, and I just kept thinking, was this school always so small? It seemed gigantic back in the day. Or how as a kid I was sure that something would grab my ankles if I let my feet dangle from the bed in the middle of the night. But Gaiman kind of flips that idea on its head with a story that tends to say, what if those childhood memories were based in reality? It's been 6 years since I first read this book, and this is my second reading, and I can now say that memories really are a funny thing. I remember the ocean playing a larger role in the story than the last time that I read it. In my head, there were whole sequences with the boy and Letty fighting some evil creature in the ocean, but that never actually happens in the book. Anyway, what struck me is how Ursula Monkton is in the book for way more pages than I thought she got, and what a fantastic name for an evil character, by the way, Ursula Monkton. Kind of along the lines of Humbert Humbert. There are certain sounds that just blend together to sound bad or evil. Her name is totally one of those. 4 stars for this one. I'd forgotten the ending to this book completely, but I really liked it this time around. And I'd also forgotten the ominous weight that gives you the creeps while reading this book. But there are also deep life lessons from Letty, her mother, and grandmother, so I'll hopefully come back to this book in a few years and soak them up once again. Next up is Mem by Bethany Morrow. This was a really original sci-fi novella in which memories can be extracted from people. Those memories capture a certain moment in their source's life, becoming beings themselves. Almost always these memory people are limited, surviving for a while as shadows of the real thing that are only fractionally aware of what's going on around them. But one of these mems is vastly different. Her name is Elsie. She effectively has become her own person, breaking out of the cage that most of her kind can't escape from. However, Elsie isn't free to do what she wants. She's required to return to the home of these mems called the Vault, and now she's under the threat of being rewritten or wiped from existence and replaced by another memory. In this day and age of advancing AI, the questions this book poses about what it means to be an individual are highly relevant. It also digs into themes about belonging and independence. But I'm going to give this one 3 stars. For such a short book, it's leisurely in revealing the intricacies of its world, which are strange. Like, the setting is 1920s Montreal. Not the future, but Canada. 100 years ago. In summary, it was an interesting concept, but subpar execution. That's a bit bewildering at times. It'll leave you scratching your head in both confusion and deep thought. And last up is All the Quiet Places by Brian Thomas Isaac. Set in the 1950s and 60s, this is the coming-age story of Eddie Toma, an indigenous boy from Canada who moves to Washington, dealing throughout the novel with hardships, racism, and tragedy as he grows up. Eddie has a tough life. It seems like the odds are forever stacked against him. The grown-ups in his life struggle, there's little stability in his world, and this chaotic upbringing leaves him unable to fully express his emotions. And whenever he does have a spot of luck or a moment of happiness or something good enter in his life, things begin to unravel. It's a sad book, not to the same degree as A Little Life by Yanagihara, but you'll just keep wondering how things will get worse. There's a hopelessness to it all. And that's why I'm going to give this one 3 stars as well. I liked how much nature and fresh air were in this book, and how the great outdoors were described with childlike wonder, but it's a difficult read that will leave you with whatever's the opposite of warm, fuzzy feelings. There you have it, the highs and lows of March 2024. Remember to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what books you finished recently. Happy reading.